Victoria, how did you find carnivore?
It's a good question. I'm a carnivore newbie or, a babe. It's been 6 weeks since I initially started my carnivore journey. However, of course, I had heard of carnivore, I think when the Petersons, broke the internet like 8 years ago or whenever it is that they kind of came out on YouTube and shared with everybody that they only eat meat. And I remember thinking like, wow, that's very extreme. And I know Michaela Peterson was like very, very sick. So I just thought, desperate times call for desperate measures. And I've always had eczema. So I remember I had like a fleeting thought that maybe I should try it, but it was like fleeting, like literally went through one ear out the other and I went back to my sugar addiction. But just to rewind, I've lived with eczema my entire life. Um, I always remembered having itchy, rashy, terrible skin. My earliest memories, I would say, of my eczema is when I don't know how old I was, but the doctors gave my mom like a prescription medication, which was called Betnivate, and it's basically a steroid cream. And so she, he said, make sure you put it all over her in the areas. I had eczema on my arms, my neck, my face, my back of my knees. And he's like, make sure she puts it on a couple times a day, let's say. So I would go, she'd make me take a shower. And then, because it was like greasy and like almost like Vaseline, she would put it on those spots. And I'd have to like stand like a mummy, like butt naked, basically, and wait for it to soak. And she would call them your soaks. Victoria, you got to soak. And I knew as long as I soaked, my skin would be okay. So that was kind of like, the way we took care of my skin. And as I got a little bit older, I started to live part time with my dad and then part time with my mom. So, I mean, if you know fathers, you're a man yourself, like, aesthetics and skincare and all those things kind of go over a dad's head, right? So, when I would go to my dad's house, like, it was like, whatever, and I was happy to not soak. The problem was that I would arrive at his house looking like his cute little daughter, and then I would leave basically looking like Freddy Krueger's long lost child. Like over a couple of days, my skin would literally like bubble up. I would have rashes in weird places, and my mom would always know, of course, that I didn't put on my medication. And then I'd have to do like a Sunday soak, and I'd stand there, arms out with covered head to toe in this like greasy concoction. And one thing about steroids is they work when they work. So I would go from a blistery red oozy rash to normal skin within a couple of days. And so that was my norm for a long time. I would go to the doctors and, they never really put much emphasis on diet. They would just say, every once in a while, they'd say, like, don't have a lot of sugar. But I felt like it was more like, they just don't want kids to eat sugar. Like, it's not like my parents enforced it or anything, right? So I just continued to use the creams, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was being increased, the how strong the dosages were. I was too young to understand that, but every time I'd go, they were upping the ante. And so eventually, another thing that was also happening at that time was that I would be prescribed a lot of antibiotics, like without reason. Like if I had a cold, they would prescribe me antibiotics. I mean, this is like early 90s. I don't know what if that was commonplace back then, but there's this banana flavored medicine. I remember always loving it. And it wasn't until I was an adult I realized, oh my goodness, like I was just taking antibiotics for like everything. Anytime I was a little bit sick, my mom would just give me antibiotics because that's what the doctor suggested. So on two ways, my immune system was being compromised, one through the steroid creams and the other through the antibiotics. So anyway, I as I got older, I kind of got a little bit of a handle on my skin. I lived more full time with my dad than my mom. And at the beginning of high school, or around, yeah, mid, like second year of high school, I was without my medication. This is the first time in my life I was without my medication. I wasn't able to see my doctor for 3 weeks. And Dave, when I tell you my skin went from 0 to 100 in a short period of time. I was unrecognizable. And now, in hindsight, I know that's something called topical steroid withdrawal, which I'll talk about later. But at the time, I just thought I was having worsening eczema. So I eventually went to a walk-in clinic because I couldn't get into my doctor. And she kind of looked at me like, whoa, like this is above my pay grade, lady. Like, go to a dermatologist. And I was like, well, I've been, but okay. So in the meantime, she's like, what do you use? Like what's your drug of choice, basically? And I told her I use Bentonivade, and she's like, okay, I'll prescribe you a tub of that. And so literally, like the tub was like this of steroid creams. And if you know anything about steroid creams, like you're supposed to put them on sparingly, like not for very long, but I was like using them indefinitely. And now she's giving me a tub. So I didn't care. I looked like literally Freddy Krueger's child. So I just went home and I'm like, you know what? Maybe my mom is onto something. And I slathered myself head to toe in that steroid, and I soaked as like a 16-year-old girl. I just said, we're just going to stick to what my mom taught me because my skin was always a lot more normal when I lived with her. And so, of course, it worked. I was fine. But growing up with eczema, even though a lot of times I was able to keep the rash at bay with the creams, I did start to notice other things that were happening. Like, for example, I would burn very easily. And that's not normal for like a person of color like myself. Like, usually our skin can handle the sun, but I would burn very easily and very unevenly. At 16, 17, I was noticing my skin was thinning and I was starting to age, which is like, I mean, 17 is like the prime of your life. Like, I shouldn't be aging. I was getting fine lines. My skin was looking very dull at that time. And I was allergic to everything. Like, have you ever seen Madagascar?
Oh, yeah, a long time ago, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a character and his name is Melman. He's the giraffe. And I think at one point he's like in the jungle, or like his head gets stuck in I don't know, a whole bunch of nature, and he goes, "Nature, it's all over me. Get it off." And that's kind of like how I felt. Like I if I go to someone's house, I'm always like, "Do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? Is there too much dust here?" Anything could just trigger its sensitivity in my skin or my eyes. I just have weird reactions to things. And it was just becoming progressively more and more. I couldn't just do the normal things kids did. Like, I was very hyper vigilant, and if I did have an outbreak, of course, it was very embarrassing. Like, people would wonder, like, what's wrong with her skin? Like, why does she look like that? So that was always like in the background, and it made me continue to just lather on those creams so that I could look somewhat normal. And so I would say, I rode that out until I was about 20. And I actually got engaged when I was 20 years old, and I got married at 21, very young, but I've been married 18 years, so it worked out. But I got married young. And so, when you get engaged, everyone wants to see your ring. So for some reason around that time, my hands started to get really bad eczema. And that was the first time in my life that my hands started to suffer. Usually it was kind of everywhere else, but not so much my hands. And so I started to develop a lot of blisters, and I'll definitely send you pictures and things, blisters. And it was just like constantly open wounds. It was awful. Anytime you had to shake someone's hand, you could see someone like flinch, like, what's wrong with her? And I had to learn to overcome that. And so I remember going to the doctor again, and I'm like, I need something else for my skin. And so they're like, okay, we'll give you a steroid because that's like all they have. And there was never any talk about anything else, or like maybe it's once again, no diet talk at all, like just more and more steroids. So I used the steroid cream, and then it stopped working. And so then they referred me to another specialist. And so I'll never forget this moment, Dave. Like, it was just crazy. I went in and I'm barely suppressing my eczema. Like, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't good. But my hands definitely weren't good. And I said, I put on the creams once or twice daily. Like, what can I do? And he's like, well, Victoria, I'm going to prescribe you another steroid cream. It's stronger. And the reason why your skin is not getting better is because you're not applying it often enough. So he said, I want you to start applying this 5 times a day. And I remember looking at him and I'm thinking, You make at least six figures. You have all the education in the world. And here I am sitting in your like private clinic in your $2 million home in a beautiful, establishment. And you're going to tell me to put a steroid cream on my body 5 times a day just to get it better. Like, I knew enough about steroid creams to know that that was awful advice. And I was so irate. And that was the first moment I realized, like, these doctors are not for you. They're just here to manage your symptoms. They're just here to, prescribe whatever they have to prescribe, and then they keep it pushing. They weren't interested in helping me really. So I started my quest to heal my skin. And boy, that was quite a quest. First, I went to a naturopath because that seems like the most logical thing to do. And I was like maybe mid 20s at the time, or like 24 or so. And gosh, expensive. They said they'd help, but I'd have to do like almost like thousands of dollars of testing. And the supplements that they offer were like $300 just for a month's supply. And to be honest, I couldn't afford that. So I was like, okay, next. And so I still continue to try to keep using the steroid cream just to sort of take the edge off. And then one day I was just looking through, the internet, and somehow this organization called ITSAN popped up, and it's basically a forum, or whatever they're called, like an initiative about topical steroid withdrawal, or it's called red skin syndrome. And so this was the first time in my life I had ever heard of topical steroid withdrawal. And basically what happens is your body becomes so addicted to the drugs that they don't work anymore. And when you stop, your skin is itching, it's oozing, you get a blistery rash, you go red. For me, because I am a person of color, I just look like I had a really bad tan. Like, it wouldn't come up necessarily red, but I would just look like I was in Jamaica, but I wasn't. And so it was just awful. Like, that lasted for 3 years, but it was this doctor who basically, said that we've been giving people way too much steroid creams, and his name is like Dr. Rappaport, and just a wonderful initiative. And he said, all you got to do is just stop the steroid creams and let it burn out, like ride it out, and eventually it'll go away. Well, after 3 years, the topical steroid, the head to toe, it did go away. But I was left with something I didn't expect, which was my eczema. So yes, I wasn't any more covered head to toe, but I still had, these patches, and he said, once again, nothing food related. This has nothing to do with food. This is just, I don't know what, but food was not part of that. So I remembered a few times kind of going no sugar when I was pregnant, like to lose weight after I had my first daughter, and both my kids actually. And so I do remember my skin was like a little bit better during those times. So I just thought, okay, like let me try this diet thing. So I started to do like no sugar diets and no carb diet and stuff like that. And I would see like a little bit of improvement, but I wouldn't say it all went away altogether. But one thing I never cut out was vegetables. Like, who would ever do that? And even though we'd love to, because who really likes vegetables? But never cut out vegetables, and never cut out fruit, even though I cut out a lot of other like processed sugar. So, once you go carnivore, you have to cut it all out. And so I was just shocked, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So, this went on for many years, just different things you try. And the thing about eczema is it can slowly deform what you look like. So over the period of time, my skin started getting worse for whatever reason. I don't know. And I guess I looked a lot worse than I thought. So when I went to see my doctor last year, she just looked at me and said, what is going on? Like, what are you going to do about your skin? Like, she's been my doctor for like 20 plus years. So we have a pretty good relationship. And I was kind of taken aback. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, do I look that awful? And she's like, your eczema, like, we need to do something. And she knew my stance about steroids. And she's like, okay, then let me send you to the dermatologist. And I just kind of chuckled, like, yeah, like Mr. Five Times, like, who are you going to send me to now? And she's like, no, I know a new dermatologist. Let me send you there. And so I was like, okay, let's, whatever, I'll go. And I definitely had my guard up when I walked into that office. Before they could really say anything to me, I was like, I don't want steroids. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, and I don't want antibiotics because, and they're like, why would we give you antibiotics? I was like, oh, really? Because that's had been my experience. And I'm like, and I think I said I don't want antifungals either. And they're like, no, we're not going to prescribe you that. And I was like, oh, okay. So what are you going to prescribe me then? And so they said that they asked me if I'd ever heard of Dupixent. And I think I had seen one of the girls on YouTube, Remy's Skin Journey, and she kind of had gone on a Dupixent journey. And so you had seen it work for her skin. And so I was familiar with it. And so I was like, yeah, I would be willing to try it because they said it's steroid free. And when you have eczema, when someone says there's medication that's steroid free, it's almost like saying, here's a chocolate cake with 0 calories. Like you're just like, finally something I can use that will help me. So Dupixent is an injection that you inject, and up until this point, I hadn't done any injectable steroids. That was something other than like through surgery, but I never did it for my skin. And I just never felt comfortable with it. I'm very grateful that I never did because it does seem like, or prednisone, didn't take anything like that. So for me to take an injection was like a big deal. And it took me like 3 times to like I kept canceling the appointment because I was very nervous. But what Dupixent does is it shuts down the proteins in your brain, I think interleukin 4 and interleukin 13. These proteins are responsible for the inflammation of the skin. However, these proteins are also responsible for some of your eye health. So, one of the side effects can be really bad eye flares and conjunctivitis, dry eyes, all of that. And so, not everybody gets it, but it is a possibility. And because my skin, it was okay, but it just had been, I was like, wow, I'm going to be 40 like next year and I'm still dealing with eczema. So I was like, you know what, my doctor's right. Let me just try the drug. I'll be fine. You never know. And so I took the drug and I injected myself and, got over my fear. And, it did as promised. It really started to clear up my skin. And in this process, I decided to start a YouTube channel because I had just realized I had been through so much skin wise. Like, I'm not even telling you half of it right now because it's so much, and I'm like, I feel like we need a community for people that have eczema. There's not a lot out there. There's some, but there's many people that suffer a lot, in the shadows. And I just wanted to be that voice and to teach people to thrive with their eczema and to also document the process of my Dupixent. However, that was very short lived because after maybe 2 or 3 months, I started getting the eye flares. And, it's like I, and it's not, this is another sad thing. It's not, they didn't tell me that this was a side effect. They just said, here's the medication. It was up to me to find that out on my own. And I remember going in again and saying, like, look at my eyes. And the doctor was just like, yeah, like, just keep taking the drug. Maybe it'll go away. Like, maybe it'll go away. Like, it was awful and painful, hard to keep your eyes open, and just, I looked like I was in a fight all the time. Like, just, so it's like, yes, the rest of my skin looked great, but then my eyes were a mess. And so I quickly knew I didn't want to continue to use that drug, and I stopped taking it. And there's something called Dupixent withdrawal. So not only is there steroid withdrawal, there's Dupixent withdrawal. And so I didn't have TikTok before I started my channel. So I had started a TikTok, and then I started to see lots of people having like facial flares, and their face was just a mess. After for like almost a year after taking their Dupixent, so I was worried. I started to get something called temperature induced rosacea. So after I got out of the shower, I'd get these like blotches all over me. My eyes, they would blister and ooze. So like this liquid was coming out of my eyes. Not to mention, it always felt like something was in my eyes. And so just difficult, just awful. And just so you know, Dupixent is not free. I was able to qualify for this patient program. And so I was able to get it for free, but typically Dupixent is $1,000 a shot. And I just thought, there's people paying $1,000 per shot to get worse, basically, and it's just it's pretty disappointing what the healthcare system is doing. But anyway, I said, okay, forget the drugs. We're just gonna back to ground one. And I know one thing for myself: anytime I've ever fasted, my skin gets better. I make jokes that like if I would just like starve, I would have perfect skin. I'd be dead, but my skin would be perfect because my skin does well when I'm not eating anything. And another thing I used to note was anytime I took antibiotics, my skin would do better. So I started to kind of be like, okay, it must be what I'm eating. But I just couldn't quite figure out what it was. And carnivore, once again, it kind of came in my mind and left. And, I wasn't quite ready, but started taking out sugar and I started taking out grains and I started taking out dairy. And in September, I took my last Dupixent shot. I had a flare. I woke up one day, my eyes were flaring, and I had to go on a women's retreat. And so I was like, let me just take the shot. So I took the shot and I went on this retreat and I was just a mess. My body, it felt like topical steroid withdrawal again, but the Dupixent version. And I couldn't enjoy myself. Like I went there to have fun with friends and you pay all this money and everyone's doing all these activities. And I'm literally like, I feel like I'm on fire. I had heard in one of your episodes, someone described asthma as like breathing through a straw. And I would say that eczema, especially when it's severe, it's basically, it makes you feel like you're burning, like on fire, or you're covered in flesh eating insects. So you kind of go back and forth between the two. If you scratch, then you'll start to feel like you're on fire. If you don't, you feel like you're covered with flesh eating insects. And you just vacillate between the two like all the time. And my whole body felt that way, to the point that I had to call my husband to come pick me up early from the retreat because I just couldn't stay another night. Like I was so uncomfortable. And I just remember getting in the car and just like staying as still as possible because it can go from 0 to 100. Like I'm already in such pain. And if I do one scratch, it's like it's over. I will tear, it will be a bloody mess everywhere. And I've done that. But so I've learned that when you start to feel like your body is going to explode, to just like sit on your hands and just, breathe because otherwise you have to deal with the after effects of scratching and all of that. And so I went home and took a shower and went to sleep. I think I popped like 3 Benadryl and woke up the next morning. I'm like, something has to change. Like, I cannot live this way. I'm not thriving. Like, the whole idea is that I can thrive with this. Like, this is not thrivable. I'm like, this thing needs to heal. So I was like, I'm going to fast. And I'm very extreme. I'm an all in, all out kind of gal. And so I was like, I'm not eating for 7 days again because I had done that. I did a collagen fast a couple of months prior and it was great. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to eat for 7 days. And, immediately on day 2, the inflammation starts to go down, the itch starts to stop. And so all of a sudden it came to me like, oh yeah, carnivore. Like you said you would try, like, why not try it? And I think that flare was like the catalyst to be like, okay, I'm going to do this very weird thing and just eat meat all the time. And so when you're my first to break the fast, the next day, I think I'd been fasting 3 days. I went and bought myself like an 8-ounce steak. And I think I ate like 7 pieces of bacon. I've never eaten that much meat at one time. Whenever you fast, they say, break it with something light, like, drink some bone broth or have a salad or, just very light stuff. And here I am eating steak. And I remember looking at my plate and I was like, I don't know, man. This might not be very good. But I was starving, so I just ate it. And at the end, I was like, why don't I feel sick? because usually when I break a fast, I end up feeling sick regardless, even if I eat a healthy meal, I just feel like a stomach upset, but I had zero stomach upset. I was mentally nauseous just from the idea that I just ate all of that meat and all that grease and, years and years of what you've been told about fat and oil and all of that. So I was like, just mentally like, this is disgusting. But my stomach was like, we're good. And I kind of felt like on a high, like a meat high, maybe. And I slept like a baby that night. And I woke up in the morning and my stomach was flat. And that was where I was like sold, because I was always bloated, like no matter what. In the last like 4 years, always bloated. Didn't matter how healthy I ate, bloating, bloating, bloating. I was just always trying to figure out what's causing the bloating. And then, so I was like, okay, maybe this carnivore thing, maybe I can do it. So then I dove deep into the world of carnivore and I found you and, Dr. Ken Berry and Steak and Butter Gal. And I was like, wow, like there's like a whole community here. And I just became obsessed with watching videos. My husband, he would walk in and be like, oh, she's watching the meat videos again. And I was just searching to find people that would heal of eczema. And there was a few that I did find, and it was very encouraging. But I just thought this needs like everyone needs to know this, especially if you have skin issues. Like this could heal your skin. Like all those years I'm going to the doctor, not once, did they say anything about my diet. And there are times when you look into it, they'll say like do an elimination diet. And so when I put into Chat GPT, like, okay, what's an elimination diet? It just felt so complicated. And just like, who wants to eat that stuff? Like, I don't know. And how do you know that maybe if it's the things that they want you to eat, what if those are what's triggering your stomach? And it didn't feel like it was going to be worth the trouble. But this made sense to me. I'm like, okay, it's just one thing, or, just meat, unless I'm allergic to meat. And I highly doubt that. And so over the next couple of days, like I just started to notice serious changes. The first thing I noticed was like my oral health, my tongue, which was normally white and you'd have to like brush it all out. That was like pink for the first time ever. I've never had just a naturally pink tongue. And then I just noticed I didn't have any, when I would floss, there was no plaque. So that was interesting. I'm someone who doesn't actually wear deodorant anyway, but normally I would just spray like a little perfume just in case, like, I noticed I didn't have any odor. I'm like, this is very like peculiar. And then slowly my skin started to really glow. Normally what's making my skin glow is like oil or Vaseline, but no, not Vaseline, sorry, but just like, something with like a moisturizer. But there was just this, now I'd wake up in the morning and like look like this, basically. Like there would just be this natural glow. And slowly I just noticed my eczema coming down over the course of a couple of weeks. And so I was like, this is phenomenal. Like this is better than any steroid cream I've ever used. I think at the point when I messaged you, it was 5 weeks in. And just another like amazing thing that just happened. So because of all my eye issues from the Dupixent, I had to go to the eye doctor because I felt like it was really obstructing my vision. And I went to the eye doctor and she looked at my eyes and she said, you kind of look like you might have glaucoma. And so I was like, crap, she's probably right, because that's actually a side effect of steroids. And she's like, does it run in your family? I'm like, no, but for many years I did use steroids, and sadly around my eyes. And so, but I hadn't used them for at least 10 years, but it doesn't matter. Like still at least, 25 years of using steroid creams. And so she's like, okay, I'm going to send you to the specialist. So this happened literally like the week I started carnivore. I got those eye tests. So literally this past Monday, I went in and, they did some further testings, and the specialist, he's like, I don't see anything. You don't have glaucoma. You have perfect vision. You're fine. And so I don't know if it was a fluke or the diet, but I'm just going to go along and say it's the diet that has like probably reversed whatever was happening with my eyes. My eyes used to be so bad. I had to use these drops like 3 times a day. I don't use those drops anymore. My eyes are perfectly fine, and they haven't been like that in months. Usually I have like a lot of inflammation under my eyes that's gone down. So my skin isn't perfect yet. I mean, I have a lot of elephant like skin from years of like scratching, but it's smoothing out, which is like super exciting. And so that's all just from eating meat.
And just to clarify, this is only over 6 weeks. Like, in
Yeah.
September, you took your last Dupixent,
Yeah.
and it doesn't like, looking at your face, it doesn't look like there was ever a problem.
Yeah, and I've got the pictures to show you that I looked like a problem. So, yeah, it's remarkable, how quickly it began to work. Even my dad, he saw me and he's like, "You haven't looked like this in years." Like, because everyone just kind of gets used to how you look, right? And my skin was starting to look much better when I was on Dupixent, but that like reversed. Like the second the withdrawal starts, you look crazy again. And so I also it encouraged my dad. He has Parkinson's, and so now he's like 3 or 4 weeks into his Dupixent journey, and
Oh,
already
his carnivore journey.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, carnivore journey. So he already his rheumatoid arthritis that he's had his whole life is gone. And I think he's like 65 or something, gone. So over the weekend he had like two muffins because he's like, no, could it possibly be this? And he said instantly the pain came back. And so he's like, "Wow, like, I'm really hoping this will heal his Parkinson's." That's like hopefully I could get him on here and he can testify to that. But, I said to him, "Daddy, if this heals my eczema, none of you are gonna hear the end of me. Like, I will be preaching this, till the cows come home." Like, this is just it needs to be the first thing before doctors, start saying steroids or, like put people on carnivore that needs so I want to be like that voice and let people know that if you have eczema there is hope, like there's a possibility that you can heal through this diet, so
Y
and you never know if you don't try.
yeah, what's your husband's reaction to this being? Because this has happened so quickly.
Yeah, I think he's even a little bit skeptical himself. And so he found out I was doing this call. He's like, "Do you think it's like a little too soon?" Or like, just waiting for the other ball to drop because you just never know. But I know he's happy, obviously, for me to see me like glowing like this. People are, one of my friends, she came over and she's like, "Are you doing something different to your skin?" I'm like, "Why?" She's like, "Because your like eczema is like kind of gone. Like it's not the same." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on a carnivore journey." So it sounds funny to say. People are like, you just eat meat. I have like two friends that, are doing it as well, but most people, they eat a regular sad diet.
Mm.
So
The
sounds crazy.
the interesting thing is, like what your husband said, maybe is it a bit too soon or something, right? That's I think that's a very natural reaction to this, right? Because, my arthritis disappeared, and a lot of the pains I was having, like in my lower back and stuff like that, you'd stand up and you get a twinge, and you sit down and you get a twinge, that kind of thing. And when those things disappear, you you keep thinking to yourself, "Oh no, it's going to come back."
Yeah.
It can't. It's not possible that it can just disappear like that. It's going to come back, right? So you almost start challenging yourself, like, or looking for the problem. Like, is it still there? Like, I was sitting on the couch and I would like stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. So how long can I go before this problem comes back?
It's true. It's very true. Yeah, it can feel a little bit too good to be true, to be honest. And 2 days ago, I went to like a Japanese restaurant where they sell like, all you can eat meat. And one of the meats I immediately could tell had been like basically soaked in sugar to be marinated. And I had like two bites and I was like, oh, and I could immediately start to feel a little bit itchy. So I was like, oh gosh. Like, let's not, so I realized very quickly that my body really doesn't respond well to sugar. And then you start to think of like longevity of carnivore because it's like, okay, if this is what it's going to be, then like, can I really survive for the rest of time like this? And uh, one of my good friends, she's like, so are you going to do this forever? And I'm like, well, like, let's just take it day by day. How about that? Because when you think about it, too long, then it feels overwhelming. And then before you know it, you're going to be, back to your old ways, right? I never thought I could go 6 weeks with zero carbs. Like, that's, I've never done that in my life. Even when I've done no carb diets, like I probably was putting croutons on my salad, like it just, I've never gone this long without carbs and I feel great. There's so many things, like my hair is like thicker and shinier. It just, I didn't expect that. Like I'm sleeping like a baby. Oh my goodness. Just all I want to do is sleep. And I think in the beginning, as my body was trying to adapt, I was like very tired all the time. But I'm finally getting that like second wind, or I don't know. I'm starting to feel more clarity and energy. And yeah, you feel kind of superhuman. You hear about it, but I guess you don't really understand it until you experience it for yourself. So as I start to feel better, I'm like, yeah, I must be able to do this forever then. Like, this is just what my body was created to do. And this is what we're created to eat. And the more research you do, you just start to uncover, like, gosh, what we've been sold is a complete lie, and it's really sad. My son, he's 10 years old. He did a project on, like, a health project, and it's all on nutrition. And last night he's literally showing me everything, and he's telling me, like, it's, you get your fiber and get your this and get your that. And I'm just chuckling to myself because I'm like, like, none of that is true, Preston. I'm like, don't tell your teacher that because she's probably going to think I'm a bad mom. But you know you don't you actually don't need any of that. And he's being indoctrinated from a very young age, learning those things. And I think one of the hardest things now is trying to find the balance between what I have my kids eat versus what I'm eating, and not wanting to starve them of a childhood, but also not wanting to feed them poison. And the more you learn, you just can't unlearn that. I'll just never be the same. So
Yeah. So on the eating side of things, how are you eating now?
So I tend to eat twice a
Mhm.
day. Uh, in the mornings, I will always have my coffee because, like, I mean, we've given up enough. Like, do we really have to give up coffee? So my daughter asked me, she's like, Mommy, what if your coffee is causing your eczema? Like, would you quit coffee? I was like, "Oh, that's tough, that's tough." I mean, I would, but it's it's definitely something I enjoy. So I do have coffee every morning, and I put about like 4 tablespoons of butter in it, like the grass-fed butter, to get my fat. And I also do put a collagen supplement in there as well. So that's what I have in the morning, and then at about 10, that's when I'd eat, I guess, my breakfast. Usually it's bacon because I have a sensitivity to eggs. I learned that real quick through this diet. Eggs don't seem to do very well with me. So usually I would just eat the bacon. And I mean, I'll have like maybe 9 strips, 8 strips of bacon. It sounds terrible, but it feels good. I enjoy it. And then later on, maybe around 4 or 5, I would eat my dinner. My favorite thing to eat is probably, like, ground beef. Yeah, I try not to put too much seasonings in it, just kinda seeing what I can eat versus what I can't. I'm not, like, doing any lion diet or anything like that, but, very minimal seasoning if I am gonna do seasonings, I like that. Sometimes I would have steak. I mean, steak is pricey, so that's probably like once a week I would have a steak. So a lot of ground beef, a lot of patties. I know Kelly Hogan, she said that, for the first, I don't know how many years, but she would just have McDonald's patties and like a Diet Coke. And I was like, oh, we can do that. So I eat McDonald's patties a lot. And I love it. I'm not sick of it. Like, I really enjoy it. It's weird. Uh, so I would say that's pretty much what I would eat. I really try my best to get at least 2,000 calories a day because a lot of people come to carnivore to lose weight, but that wasn't something I was really trying to do. I have lost 10 pounds and I don't want to lose any more. And so if you have any advice how to not lose weight, I'm probably like the first person to ever say that, but I'm not trying to get too thin on the diet. But so that's been challenging. I do try to do my very best to get at least 2,000 calories. And I think one day I had like 3,000 calories. I counted it all. And the next morning I had dropped 2 pounds. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, there's never a time that I could eat 3,000 calories and lose weight. Like, this diet is the dream for most, I would say.
Yeah. Um, that's awesome, and like, one thing I have to go back to that's been on my mind since you mentioned it, right? You said you got married at 21,
Yeah.
and that was 18 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I can't believe it. You don't look your age.
Yes. Well, I did look my age, actually. I would say carnivore diet has definitely helped me. I'm aging backwards now in the last 6 weeks, but yeah, I'm pushing 40. I'll be 40 in February.
Um, so, has your husband shown any interest in doing this too?
I don't know about interest, but I'm the one who does the cooking. So he had wanted to lose a little bit of weight, I think, in general. So we were eating kind of more keto-ish, or dirty keto, I guess is what people call it. And so he just eats whatever I give him. He's really good that way. And I don't know if he cheats when he's, not home, but for the most part, he'll just eat whatever I give him, and he's happy. So I'm blessed that way.
Oh, that's awesome. Um, so, at this stage, do you feel like there's no going back?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. As long as I continue to feel good, I don't see why I should go back. And I think, you know, I've thought about eventually. I said I would do it for 3 months and see where I'm at. So I'm only 6 weeks in, and then at 3 months, I said I'd assess and see if I want to introduce foods or what foods. But I can't really think of what to introduce, to be honest. So if I do introduce and it doesn't go well, then that'll be my confirmation that I'm just going to stick to what I'm doing. I don't mind doing that. I think this is the first time in my life I'm getting enough protein. A lot of women don't get enough protein in their diet. And I realized I'm so full. So I don't think I could even add anything else and then still get enough protein, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like any other food would begin to take away from my nutrition. And protein is very important. Protein and fat are so important for rebuilding the skin. So I don't know. Like, I'm not going to say no, because who knows where I'll be a year from now. But as it stands today, I don't have any desire to eat meat. Not sorry, not meat, carbs or sugar. And that's the weird thing about the diet too. Like, it's very easy. Like, I've been on no sugar diets, and like all you're thinking about is the sugar, and I don't think about sugar. I don't even think about food. You go to visit friends, and I realize everybody is food obsessed. I'm never thinking about food. It's like, oh, what are we going to eat? What are we get? Everything's surrounding the food. And I'm just like, oh, I'm just here for the vibes. I'm just here to see you guys. Like, I don't care about the food. So it's interesting how it just puts things into perspective, and it's really changed me. Like, just as a person, I'm much stronger. A lot of things were happening in my personal life during this season, and I was thinking, if I had been eating sugar during this time of my life, I probably wouldn't have done so well. Like, it's just given me this. I'm naturally a calm person, but it's given me like this genuine calm, and a confidence. I don't know. I just went in it for the skin. I'm just here for the glow, but it's definitely given a whole bunch of other
Yeah,
unintended benefits.
I think, that calmness, I think it's best described as if before, if there was a situation you're involved with, like, you're right in the middle of that situation and you can't look at it clearly and you're not feeling calm and that kind of thing. But now it's almost like you can sit and watch the situation playing out on the TV, and you're kind of, in a way, you're disconnected from it, and that keeps you a little bit calm and you can make a more rational decision.
Yes. That's exactly it. Like, yeah, my processing or just I'm like, "Whoa, like, who is this girl?" Like, it's not I'm thinking in ways I didn't normally think, you know? So I'm very grateful, very, very grateful to have come across this diet, you know?
Right. So, would you recommend this to anyone with eczema maybe before they try something serious like Dupixent?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Before you try any medication, I think that this is worth a try because I just it works. I mean, I've even on your channel, I've watched videos and people have said, you know, it's healed them. I would love to hear more people that it's healed their eczema, but I think it's definitely it makes sense. It makes sense, especially if you've noticed things like taking antibiotics and your skin getting better. I think that's a good, you know, way to tell that maybe this is diet related because antibiotics like they kind of kill all the bacteria in your gut and a lot of eczema issues are gut related. So and the only problem is the second you stop the antibiotics your everything just rages back up again. So I really do think that this is definitely something that if you have eczema or acne, any skin issue, I haven't gotten a single hormonal pimple during this 6 weeks. Like my skin has never looked better.
It's fantastic, and it's so nice when you find out that it's almost like flipping a switch. You just have to eat properly, and it's like everything your body goes, "Alright, I know what to do now."
Yeah, 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 it's very true. Even down to digestion, I was concerned, you know, you hear like you need to eat fiber, fiber keeps things moving. And I used to eat lots of salad and my stomach would always be bloated. You know, stool would have like mucus and all of that. Like it just never looks right. And since I've been on carnivore, like it sounds it's embarrassing to say like on the internet, but it my stool looks like perfect. Like poster child stool. Like it sinks, it doesn't float, there's no mucus, there's no like there's not even really a smell. That's like the craziest thing. My kids are gonna be like, I can't believe you said that on on YouTube. But it's very true. And I feel like those are little indications of health. Like, what does your stool look like? You know, what does your tongue look like? What does your skin look like? Like, these are all little windows to how healthy you really are. And so, just very quickly, see, when I saw my stool was okay, I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be fine. You know, I didn't have any constipation. Maybe I was lucky in that I had sort of dwindled down in my diet. I didn't go from like my sugar addict days to this. I had over time and many years had kind of was ready for this moment, I guess could say. But it was very smooth, no pun intended. Or
That's awesome. So Victoria, how can people find you online?
yeah, I have a YouTube channel that I started just in I think April. So I'm new at this as well, but it's called The Few, which is an acronym, The Few, which is Fellow Eczema Warriors. And you can check me out on YouTube. I have Instagram and TikTok, but to be honest, I'm mostly on that, or you could email me at felloweczemawarriors@gmail.com and I'd be happy to chat with you or walk you through anything you need in terms of how to improve your skin. My channel has like lots of things. If you're not interested in carnivore, there's lots of other ways to thrive and you know, things to look to, even just topically and products and that I do product reviews and stuff like that. So if you're interested, yeah, check it out.
No worries. I'll link to your YouTube channel and your socials in the show notes. Victoria, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I appreciate what you do. This is like life saving for a lot of us.